Well, welcome back to 8 Bits, everybody, the show where we interview the people behind the tech. I'm your host, Brandon Minnick, and with me, as always, is the amazing PJ Metz. PJ, how was your week?
I only speak in reggae horn now.
That's two reggae horns for yes, one for no.
My week is great. It's Tuesday. Tuesday is one of my favorite days of the week, actually. Tuesday and Wednesday are two of my favorites. And that sounds weird, but first off, on Tuesday, I get free stuff from T-Mobile for T-Mobile Tuesdays, which is great. If you don't know what T-Mobile Tuesdays is, then you don't have T-Mobile. But basically, they give you a bunch of like free stuff on Tuesdays. Like it can be, oh, get a free chicken sandwich from Popeyes when you use their app and just click this coupon. Or, for instance, every week they give you 10 cents off of gas per gallon from Shell. And I've been doing that since like 2017. And they keep a tally of how much money you've saved on gas over that time, which is real nice. And I
Wow.
like Wednesdays because Wednesdays used to be short days when I was a teacher, and I still like Wednesdays.
Well, not sponsored by T-Mobile yet,
But
but
they can.
T-Mobile, you can send us an email at hello@8bits.tv and we will happily respond.
Listen, I will gladly wear the magenta for y'all. Just let us know, and we will be a part of that team for sure. How is your week, Brandon? What have you been up to?
Oh, good, good, good. Crazy productive weekend. Nothing to do with tech, although I did open some PRs that we merged into the .NET Maui Community Toolkit. But yeah, had a busy weekend where I hung some gutters on the house.
Whoa!
No big deal. It was actually pretty easy. Surprisingly, I watched. You ever watch This Old House?
Yeah,
It used to be
yeah,
Bob Vila's
classic.
show. It's yeah, really, really good, really helpful. Somebody recommended that to me when we bought our first house. They're like, yeah, just if you can find an episode of This Old House on it, you can do anything. And sure enough, like
Okay.
needed to hang some gutters because where the water was dripping, it was splashing and basically rotting out the side of our siding. So that's going to be
Yeah.
the next project is to fix that. But yeah, put up some gutters and then yeah, still training for the Napa Valley Marathon that's coming up in March. So after hanging some gutters, I rewarded myself by doing a half marathon when ran
Oh,
13.1 miles.
now, was that including your warm up run, or was it warm up run then do 13?
You're using this word warm up. I mean, I stretch. Actually, I bought a Theragun. Shout out to Theragun. Those are
Whoa! If you
incredible.
guys want to sponsor us, for sure, let us know.
But yeah, so I got a nice little routine now where I'll use the Theragun on my legs to kind of loosen everything up, do a little bit of dynamic stretching, but then I'm up. And
Okay.
and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I've been running the past couple months training for this marathon, but I haven't really done a race since 2019, which
Okay.
was the San Francisco half marathon. And I almost hit that same time. I finished in about an hour 51. Hey, thank you.
That's
Yes.
pretty good.
And
Hold on, I
it
got
felt
some for
great.
this.
Oh, thanks everybody.
That's always a good feeling when you come back to something after a long time of not really doing it, and you're like, "Oh, I'm doing great." But that can also be balanced out with sometimes you've been doing something for a long time, and suddenly you're terrible at it. I've had times where I sit down to drums. I've been playing drums pretty consistently, and I sit down to just do it, and everything falls apart. I'm dropping sticks, like I forget how to do a roll. It just all falls apart on me. But I'll go months without it, and then suddenly I'll play a drum set, and I'm like, oh, I'm the best drummer there's ever been, which is a lie. That's not true.
Which ironically sounds a lot like coding. When you look at old code and sometimes you go, wow, whoever wrote this was really smart. And you're like, oh, that was me. And then sometimes you'll look at your old code and be like, wow, whoever wrote this really did know what they were doing. And you're like, oh, that was also me.
You're looking at code with someone, you're like, man, if I ever write code like this, like, tell me to retire. And they're like, this is yours. You're like, oh, all right. Time to
Whoops.
retire. I take back what I said before. Yeah, it's rough out there, huh? It's rough out there for yourself.
So, speaking of which, we have a really, really, really amazing guest this week. Mark Allibone. He's a open source developer, or at least we're nudging him towards the open source. I've we'll say known of Mark for years. I think we officially first met just a couple months ago when we were both speaking at a conference. But he also has his own podcast. He's I would call him a senior developer, if not principal, if not higher. But without further ado, let's bring him on. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey guys.
I'm officially doing that with every guest. From now on, it's such a good effect.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. For those who haven't met you yet, Mark, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, good question, Brandon. Sometimes I ask myself the same thing, especially when I look at my code the day after, right? Or some years after. So I totally can relate to that one. So my name is Mark Allibone. I live in Switzerland, which is not Sweden. There's a joke there which only Swiss and Swedish people probably understand. And yeah, I work here as a software developer / project manager / technical lead sometimes. The company's still growing and we still have some obstacles to take. So it's always fun. You get to wear multiple hats, even though I don't have one on. I wasn't informed, guys. Yeah, someone should have told me I should wear a hat. I mean,
no, I'm just going bald. That's why I wear a hat.
Okay, I mean, if you're listening to the audio track, it's like everybody's wearing a hat in this room, just me not, and I feel left out here. Yeah, no, and it's what it's a thing.
I've got my Microsoft hat on, and I remember when we first started the show. It did start out. 8-Bit started out actually as a official Microsoft show that they ended up not picking us up for another season, so now we're independent. Right. But yeah, I this is one of my favorite hats. I'm wearing a Microsoft hat with, I think this was the official logo in the 80s, if I remember correctly. And it's just one of my favorite hats.
Like the Metallica logo. Like
it does, yeah. And like somebody called me out in the comments, like, "Wow, like Microsoft employees have to wear their own branding," and like, no, I just like this hat.
Yes,
like, it's a dope hat.
And like, I see PJ's wearing an Orlando hat. It's like I don't have to wear a hat where I live. It's just it's a cool hat.
This is one of my favorite hats. It was like $20 at like a tourist trap shop somewhere on International Drive, and I might be the only Orlando resident who bought this hat. Everyone else is from Iowa or Canada or some other place that I've never been.
Right. But it's like wearing an I Heart New York shirt when you're in New York City.
Yeah, but like,
that person's not from here.
Now, to be fair, New York Yankees hats are like a ubiquitous thing where like even New York people really wear them a lot, but also everyone does. I don't know. This is a show about hats, by the way. Welcome for those of you just joining us.
So speaking of hats and bad transitions, Mark, let's go way back because you've been coding for a long time. And
is this how you say I'm old?
You look great. Nobody would ever guess
Thank
other
you.
than your skills and looking at the code that you've been doing it for a while. But if we go back, we always love learning what inspires folks to get into coding, get into tech, because there's no wrong answer. So let's jump in the time machine. Let's go back. When did you first say fall in love with technology and start learning to write code?
Well, so I've been one of those people that has had access to a computer for a very, very long time, because As a matter of fact, my mother, she used to work for a Swiss insurance company, and she used to be a COBOL developer. So she's retired now, but she did that, and she used to work from home back in the day. So that was like early '90s and stuff. So in some kind, I always tell her like, you pioneered a lot of stuff probably there, mum. But yeah, she just did it, and so with that, we had like these big floppies. They're like the small ones with the thing that slides, and there's like the big ones where you can use them to fan them. And she used to bring home games for these things. So like the Formula One game, I got no idea how it's called, maybe MotoGP something, and that's how I first got in contact computer. And yeah, that's how like Commander Keen and stuff like that. So a lot of games. So I was always a bit fond of technology. But I never was like one of those people that went like, and then I discovered that I could write code to cheat in the games. That wasn't me. and
Very
and
honest game player.
yeah, and my mother, she never taught me how to write COBOL. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so had in contact with it. So not really afraid. Always found it very fascinating. Mostly to play games. And then I remember I was like 14, and then a friend of mine, he had like this book. Books, for people that don't know it, they work without batteries. They're really great, as long as you got daylight or some light. And it was about HTML and JavaScript and CSS. So yeah, it was one of the early versions, where you put everything into tables and you had tables within tables. And that was how you wrote websites back in those days. And then you still sprinkle a little bit of JavaScript over it, like nothing super fancy, and a little bit of Ajax, and that was pretty much it. So I thought, hey, that's interesting. So I did a few things, like I done programming, HTML, putting it there, and yeah, I had fun doing that, but it was nothing really serious. So but that was like the first time where I saw that computers are not just there to write your homework and play games, but you can actually start creating stuff. And then in Switzerland, this is a bit special. So when I then here, like say in a lot of countries that I know, you go to school, you go to high school, and then you go to college, and then you get a job, or you go from high school and then get a job. About that's how I know how the education system works in the US. So please don't quote me on that one, and don't be mad if I got one or two directions wrong there. And so in Switzerland, what we can do is we got like primary school, secondary school, and then after secondary school, you got two paths that you can take. You can either go the university route, which you then have to go to another school, and then you go to uni, or you can go and take an apprenticeship. And this is totally normal here. So we have apprenticeships for almost every job that you can imagine. So from people that work on electricity, plumbing, baking, accounting, sales, whatever. We have pretty much. So this is, I think, a bit special for Switzerland. It's also called the dual system of education. And so what I did, I didn't go down the uni route because I fluked out in French when I took the test to go to that middle thing. I don't want to go into the grade, but it was very low. Yeah, but it probably I deserve that because I only learned to properly do French after that, because someone said it can't be that you just mingle by every time in school, and then when the real test comes, you fluke out. So it's kind of got discovered there. But anyhow, yeah, that's French. I'll leave it there. And so after that, I then went and did an apprenticeship in computer programming. So that was one of the first years that apprenticeship was actually even offered in Switzerland. And it takes 4 years. So apprenticeship, you get paid a wage, but it's quite low. Mm-hmm. And usually, like if you're a company, you can have apprenticeships. You also get like some tax deductions in Switzerland if you do it as a company. And basically what you do is you're a few days you're in the company, so you're doing work, and then you're 1 or 2 days in school. And that's how you then get educated. And there's a system, like you have to have a person in your company that takes some formal training. So you can have apprentices in your company, and then you learn it. And there's some standards, like you learn the same stuff in school, but it also depends a bit where you end up as a company-wise for training that you get there. And yeah, that's how I really got that into contact with developing and all kinds of stuff like that. And in one of my final years, I then it's a long monologue. And then in one of my final years, I actually got to work at a small how do you say? There was a college, and they have like departments, a college department, and then I went there, and they did a ton of embedded systems like real time clock management for power switching. They developed the protocol there, and I thought this is super cool stuff. But I realized then, like, if I don't go to university, or get a bachelor's degree, I won't be able probably to do this cool kind of stuff. Like, I will be able to do programming, but not this cool kind of stuff, and that's why then I actually also went to university, which is, compared to what I hear about prices in the US, I think
we don't have to talk about that. I've got 2
think-
degrees and I paid a lot for them.
yeah.
That's Mark. That's fascinating. Yeah, PJ, correct me if I'm wrong. Mark, you might be our first guest from Switzerland. So I don't know if we've ever had the background of PJ's thinking deep, but
this is
but I love that concept of the apprenticeship, and I think that's something that, while I'll say not necessarily the U.S. is the government, because it sounds like Switzerland has set up programs. So you mentioned getting tax breaks. You mentioned that all these systems are in place. We in the U.S. there's always been kind of a stigma, or at least definitely less so nowadays. But when I was growing up, it was, yes, you have to go to college. If you don't go to college, then you're going to be homeless on the street. And that's just not true, because there have always been apprenticeships. In the US, they've always been more geared towards what we'd call colloquially blue collar jobs. So if you want to get highly technical, hands-on work, like welding, for example, not everybody can pick up a welding torch and do it. You should probably
we, in
train.
fact, don't recommend that anyone, as a legal disclaimer for the show, please do not pick up something you're not trained for.
Right. But yeah, I remember there was no discussion of that. Nobody even told me that I should or could do that. It was just, yep, you got to go to college. And I feel like nowadays in the US, there has become this shift, like you mentioned, like PJ was joking about, like college has gotten so expensive that is it even worth it anymore to graduate with 6-figure student loan debt? For some reason, the student loan system, or student loans in this country, also, like, the interest rates are, well,
way
they're not
higher than
high
most other
in
forms
historic
of credit.
sense, but yeah, like you could get a mortgage for around 3% interest now, whereas your student loan is going to be around 8% interest. It's like, why? Like,
wow.
Yes, both are important, but arguably, like, education should be most. But so we're finding less and less folks need to go that route. Now, you did mention that there was that electronics, hardware, embedded systems that you did feel that nudge towards, if I didn't get a bachelor's degree in this, then I probably wouldn't be successful in it. And I'd love to know more. So that, where is that line in Switzerland between I really need a degree for this, and no, you know what, I can learn it on my own and still be okay, have a successful career?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. There's no hard rule, I would say. Generally speaking, if you get a formal education, there are some industries that look more. If you have a degree, like if you look at medical companies or pharma companies, they value that quite highly if you have got a master's or a doctor's degree, and so they're, even with a bachelor, you're like on the low end profile to get in there. But there are many other jobs where it is not required to have a bachelor's degree or even a certificate. So if you do the apprenticeship in Switzerland, you also get like a certificate that you have done this, and there are also tests that you have to take at the end to get that. And you can learn software development on the side. You can go to a coding school and learn it like that. But let's just say it's like, for me, usually there are people that are way smarter than me, way better than me in software development, and they haven't got a degree. I mean, that's just the truth. Okay, I know where I stand, but for me, when someone has a degree, I think a degree. I don't know how it's in the US, but in Switzerland, you have to take a lot of coursework on the side. So if you do like in IT, you do a lot of mathematics. And usually for me, it's just like, if you got a formal degree, it just means someone can grind their way sometimes through the not so pleasant parts, and they got a bit more stick. This is not meaning that you have to have a formal education so someone can judge your character. But it's just like, yeah, I think you just have to, chew a bit on these not so nice bits until you like can reap some benefits.
There's absolutely a tendency of like, school is so important you have to do it, and in America it's very different. Where school's so important you have to do it, and like Brandon said earlier, I feel like people of our age, especially, were just expected. That was what was expected. You have to go to school, you have to do it, and so now there's a prevalence of expectation that you need that degree. But in our comments just now, there is an element of a certain people are allowed a certain amount of like grace that other groups are not, where you can be judged on potential based on how well you fit in, as opposed to what your past is. And I think that this is absolutely correct. We've seen this in anecdotal evidence, certainly, but you can see that there are differences in what opportunities people get based on what group they're a part of. And without that degree, I'm half Puerto Rican. Many of my cousins are a mix of Puerto Rican and Black. And I remember talking with my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. There was an expectation. They were always told, you're going to have to work twice as hard in order to get half the recognition. And I think that's a very true statement. Certainly in America, certainly in other countries, but anecdotally speaking about America, some people are given a pass and it's okay, you're fine. Others aren't. But that system you talked about in Sweden is something I actually saw at a high school I worked at, where there were 2 tracks for the high school. And it's really rare in America that happens. You would either say, I'm pursuing college, and your track in high school would change, or I'm pursuing something different. I'm not necessarily thinking about college. And there were things like more like what Brendan talked about, blue collar jobs. We had a mechanics room. We had a marine mechanics garage where they could work on boats and stuff. And this was on a coastal town. So that's lucrative. If you know how to fix a boat engine, then you're going to be great. But that it's so amazing to talk about the way different systems work in different places. And that line, Brandon, of when do you need the degree? When do you not need the degree? I think it's interesting that you kind of did both sides, Mark, where it was apprenticeship for CS, and then, well, I want college because I want to work on these other more complex, it seems more complex systems. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. So at least at the time, I had the feeling it would make sense. I was also like in a department from that college that I then later attended, so might have been a bit of bias in the room. So these days, I'm pretty sure I could do the same work without, let's just say, like computer wise or programming wise. I'm pretty certain you could do the same stuff, but yeah, it's always hard to say, like, would you have done it then and stuff like that. So yeah, coulda, woulda, woulda. But yeah, so it definitely is interesting, and I always must say, for me, it's like when people say, well, we need more college graduates because we got like this dual system in Switzerland. It's always like, if we compare ourselves to other countries, we got less degrees, like in percentage wise and population, stuff like that. And it's just like, well, does everybody need a degree? I mean, do you really need to have a degree to do your job? And sometimes the answer is no. And sometimes we say, well, it might make sense that you get a formal education before you can cut up people or before you construct buildings and stuff like
That's
that.
right.
To be
You're not allowed to cut people unless you got that degree.
Yeah, but I mean, but I mean, like, then I mean, the question is like, yeah, I mean, so a bit of formal education probably is good in most jobs. I mean, even if you handling electricians, wiring, I mean, you don't want to get zapped with those.
Mhm.
So you need some education, but I think the question is totally fair. Like, how much do you really need, and is it always sensible to do like the classical computer science degree routes or stuff like that? For me, I would say yes, it was. Even though I'm the first to tell you I learned so much maths when I did it, and I used it like once. Once I had to do in a project, I had to do some probability, and then I was really happy that I could,
Mhm.
pick up that book again and reread how it's done, and then yeah. But it's oftentimes it's just like understanding stuff when you are reading maybe something, or just like you know how it works beneath, even though you'd never really dive into it. I just think like knowing the background, or going a bit lower in the tech stack than what you're actually working at can be really good to know, because then you know, like, oh no, I shouldn't do this because below this and that will happen, or
Mhm.
the system has got no chance to optimize this, because how would he know it? And you, if you only like always live like in your happy place and stuff like that, you probably won't know that. But yeah, I wouldn't say you have to spend tons of dollars to get to know that, because a lot of education is these days, I mean, out there also for free. I mean, if you look at YouTube
Mm.
and stuff like that, yeah.
There's a lot better chances in education now for sure. There's does everyone have the resources to access that? It's becoming more ubiquitous, absolutely, but time is a resource too. But I absolutely agree with you. Does everyone need college? For you, you said it benefited me. It worked for me. Did I need it for the day to day? Not necessarily, but it helped. And I think I saw Joe Carlson, who's been on this podcast before, talking about it for a question someone asked him on TikTok. I'm in my CS degree right now. Should I stick it out, or should I just go and start working and get experience that way? You'll have to follow Joe on TikTok for the answer, though. So
Oh goodness. So Mark, we've got your degree, and so getting into your first job, what were you working on first? What kind of role did that company hand to, we'll say, relatively new developer like yourself?
So I had like this experience twice. I had it once after the apprenticeship and once after graduating. Though I must say, like, after graduating, I had a confidence in my abilities which was way overstretched, and I then got that feedback, not in a direct way, but in the indirect way of noticing just how how much I still have to learn. And yeah, I remember when I started my first job after university, a lot of stuff. I mean, my degree is like 12 years ago, so stuff things have changed. I'm not trying to blame my school here, but like clean code, or just like how to structure projects, those are not at the top of my head how I would do that. So I still had a learning curve. I would still say I was a junior back then, and I then started to work for a company. They had a very small software department. It was me and my boss. That was us, and the majority of the company, they were actually designing computer chips. So these system on a chip things that then get built in and are all the smarts these days. So yeah, and we were working for a Swiss bank back then, and I remember like people, they didn't know in that job, they didn't know where to put me. So I was just like handed like random tasks, like yeah, they had this new system which was I was a C# developer. It was written in Java, but hey, I did Java during my during my education, so yeah, I can check that out, I think. And yeah, so I was handed all these random jobs because no one really knew where to place me and put me. And after that, I then did different jobs, and I learned like on the job. But the person that I was with then, I mean, fun fact, he didn't have a high school degree, but he's one of the best programmers I ever learned, and he taught me a lot of things, and he showed me like a lot of ways how you can improve your code, how you can style your code, and also yeah, some how you go about work as a software developer, and that really taught me a lot. I mean, I still had to do a lot of study on the side by myself, but it's just like getting pushed into the right direction can be really helpful when you start out. And so he built me up step by step, and then he left afterwards. So then I was put into the embedded departments of that company, and I was like the only developer that did not do the low level C coding there. And I was then still working for an external company, and still doing C sharp. Learned to do test driven developments. Did some Ruby on Rails on the side because it was like an internal application, and just step by step grade it up. And that's how I remember starting. And I just know, like, I think getting the first job, that was like really tough. So when 12 years ago, that was like 2009, whoever did the math. And 2009, 2008 was the financial crisis. So 2009 was not the best time to look for a job. And I noticed that. So I had some time where I was just like applying to jobs at random and just like hoping that one application would stick. And then I finally got a chance because I read in a book how interfaces work in comparison to classes. And then I was asked at a coding interview, and I just could say, well, in fact, you could just instantiate that class and just assign it to the interface. And that blew my counterpart that much away that, I somehow got the job.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so you mentioned when you first started out, that kind of that overconfidence that kind of quickly came crashing back down to earth, and I know I've certainly felt that. I think a lot of folks in the industry get that because there is so much to learn, consume, to know, and the expectations can be there that you have to do and know all of this. What was an example of when you realized that you were maybe more or bigger than your britches, for lack of a better term, where you got maybe a task that kind of hit you? Wow, I still have a lot to learn.
When did your ego learn a lesson?
Well, my ego learns a lot of lessons, still is sometimes. Maybe these days it's more imposter syndrome, but not all of that. But so when I started out, I remember there was like this one task where that my boss came up to me and she said, well, just set up this SQL server and then make a ADO.NET layer on top, and then so we can request it by a service. And I was like, okay, I had SQL during my high school. How hard can this be? Yeah, a day passed. Not much was running. And that just taught me, like, I think there's like this thing, like in university, I remember like the sentence when you had questions, or when you questioned the learning material of the teacher, and then he sometimes got the sentence, not everybody has got the skills to be an engineer. And so after you completed that training course, you thought, well, I got the skills of an engineer. I can do everything. Turns out, no, you don't know. You don't know, like if you're in real life, you don't just have like these algorithms or these theoretical SQL queries that you have to write. You actually have to set the thing up, and setting the thing up means getting your hands dirty and knowing how to beat the thing into life. Sometimes things have gone a lot better since then, but I remember really struggling back then getting that thing to run.
And so what did you do next? So because you say to yourself, oh yeah, I can do this. I know what SQL stands for. When in reality, like, I probably never deployed a production server. So where do you go next from there? You realize that you don't know enough, and you've kind of, I would say, dug yourself a hole. But how do you get yourself out of it?
Yeah, so I had to. There are like two ways how I think you can tackle this problem, and for a very, very long time, I always stuck to this one. Like, you got to learn the basics, you gotta learn the entire stack, and then once you understand how it works, then get to the practical part. And the other thing is, you fire up your favorite search engine, you look for the task at hand, and then you just follow the first tutorial or blog post that comes to hand. You mingle your way through it, and then you see that it runs, and then you repeat that a couple of times until you get like the feel for it, and then once you feel a bit, what am I actually doing? The question starts boiling up. Then you take that book and then you start to read up on it, because like this might be worth my time because I'm doing it a lot. And so for me, it's like I think sometimes it's just like really important to get something started and not to get like into this trap of, oh, well, no, I got now this 600-page book I just bought on Amazon, so I just have to read this for 3 weeks and then I'll be able to set up this SQL server.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just say you probably could follow that blog post, get the SQL server up and running in the afternoon, do your things, and then someone will come along and say, that's not how you write the most optimal SQL query. You can, and then you just go, okay, yeah, so please show me how. But I just think sometimes you really have to, hit the ground running, or just like try and just be on it, and just mingle yourself through instead of always going down into the deep end pool dive and trying to read up on everything.
Right. You don't have to become an expert in order to do it. You have to do it, and then you can become an expert through iterations. Too many people are worried about being smart enough to do it or knowing how to do it, as opposed to like, just get in there, do it. Get in there and do it. Make it work. Once it works, you can make it better next time. That's iterations. Like, it's going to get better over time. So you can't make it perfect now. Make it good now. Build up to perfect.
Yeah, and I think another thing is like, so at the beginning I really had the luck for that, and then I always had like these gaps in between where I didn't really have someone that I could say he or she was my mentor to hold me to show me along the way. And I think if you got someone experienced that can just like nudge you into the right direction, as I said before, that can be so helpful. It saves you so much time. Just like, just read through this post, it will get you started, and then hey, if you're interested, I can really recommend this book for you. I can really recommend this video for you, or this Pluralsight course. That can be very helpful to just get you started, and also then become an expert.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, speaking of experts, we've got a quick ad break that we're going to take here, and we'll be right back after the ad. Hi, if you're hearing my voice, that means you've been listening to or watching 8 Bits with Brandon and PJ. And we're here to talk to you about your product and how it can help you in your life by to do whatever your product does. So if you're an avid listener of the show, or you watch us on Twitch, then you'll know that your product is right for you. That's right, y'all. We are accepting ad buys. If you would like to advertise on our podcast and reach our many, many listeners, just send us an email at hello@8bits.tv, and we'd be happy to talk with you about options, which we will definitely have ready to talk about as soon as you message us.
Absolutely. So, Mark, we've been chatting a lot about, we'll say, younger Mark. And kind of getting into things, learning things, making the mistakes, and not that we don't still do that today. I know I certainly still make a lot of mistakes. But let's fast forward a little bit, because there are so many cool things that you are working on today. And I think to set the stage a little bit, what is it and what technologies do you work on today?
So great question. That's always the thing to say to buy some time, right? So fast forwarding to today. At my job right now, my company works in the industrial IoT field. And so we could go into there if you want to. But what I do there is I do ASP.NET Core at the back end. And also I really love doing mobile apps. So my heart is still pounding for mobile applications. I've been doing them for quite some years. So I remember the first application that I did that was sort of mobile was Windows 8. I was one of those 5 developers that did a Windows 8 application. And that was I thought this is so cool. You got your mobile phones and the thing and the whole vibe going on, and buying into the whole ad campaigns of the mobile providers and stuff like that. So I really liked it. And then I got into the Xamarin bandwagon. So about back before there was Xamarin Forms, not when it was still mono, like the bit in between. And I did a lot of mobile applications for businesses, boring line of business applications mostly. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then I remember doing when Xamarin Forms came out, like version 1.0. We did an app with that, and that was interesting, I would say, to put it politically kindly.
Painful. That's okay.
Well, let's just
Xamarin
say
Forms has come a long way in
It's better now.
7 years.
yeah. It's I mean now it's I think it's like compared to that, it's like really amazing. I mean, the other day I was talking with Sean. I think he was here on this show also recently.
Sean Lawrence.
Yeah, Sean Lawrence. That's a Sean. And so he actually even made a game with animations and all that stuff. And I just remember like the version 1.0 thing that we did. We had like a bit of a complex thing in the table, and it just the performance just crashed. It was like sluggish and all that. But yeah, I mean these days phones, they got such a superpower, and yeah, so that's what I really like to do. And also like I then started to talk about Xamarin, like, yeah, hey, you really have to check this out. I'm that kind of person at your job. So when I find something cool, I will be the guy running from cube to cube, showing.
That's how I am when there's free donuts in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's tech and that, to be honest. Yeah, but no, but so I then started to do talks like at user groups and local conferences, and started doing a blog on the side because I mean it's like some people that come up with you with a question, and you can answer it, and sometimes you just think, man, I should really write this down, because I get these questions like all the time. It's just like, okay, I put it on my blog. Or sometimes you think like, how does this work? I'll just leave it on my blog, so the next time I have to do it at my day job, I can sneak peek. And yeah, I mean that's how I then did that more and more. And then someone asked me if I wanted to become a Microsoft MVP, and then since a few years back, I've now been in the Microsoft MVP program, where I've met a lot of very cool people that are also like in the sharing and community spirit, and sharing the knowledge, which I really enjoy. And it's also how Brad and I met, was at a conference. So living in parallel, or in the same universe but in parallel spaces. That was really cool. So yeah, that's fast forward to today.
I love the idea of like writing down what you're learning, or when people have questions, you're like, oh, I should make something that reaches more people. And I think that that's something that a lot of people who are getting into tech now, who are juniors, who are not sure what to do, if you just start writing what you've learned, or if you find a workaround and you tell a lot of people about it, that's a great way to one, keep learning yourself, because you can learn something and do it, but when you write about it, that's when you really solidify the learning that you did. You're creating materials for other people who are going to have the same questions, and it's just a great way to make your career better, because now suddenly you're the person who has information. You're like, oh yeah, I encountered that same problem before. I wrote a post about it. Here it is. And having that information available is what makes all of us better. I can't recommend that enough for everybody to write what you're learning and share it with people. You might think it's really obvious, but someone out there doesn't know it yet. And so sharing that information is just going to make everyone better. I love that, Mark. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's PJ. You said it like really nicely. They're like, yeah. Sometimes people come up to me and they say like, well, I don't know if I really should blog. I don't know if this is smart enough to put onto a blog post. And you just go like,
do it.
If it would help you, I always say like, if it would help you, like 2 hours ago or 2 weeks ago, write it, because there will be someone out there that just knows that will be you like 2 weeks ago, who will be eternally thankful that someone put a post out there and you had to like grab your information from 3 or 4 sources.
Document like you're writing for you from 2 weeks ago. I feel like there's a better way. There's a bumper sticker in there somewhere. I'll work on it and we'll sell the merch for sure.
Beautiful.
Sounds good.
And I can't agree more. But question for you. So if somebody is listening right now and goes, oh gosh, yeah, you're right, I should do that. But where or how? Actually, PJ, we'll start with you since you brought it up. What do you recommend for somebody new to do I start a blog? Do I use a site like Medium? What are the options out there for us?
So I know that for me, this is advice that I got early in my career from Brandon. Write down what you're learning and show people what you're learning. So one way to do it is to consider learning live on Twitch because it makes a literal video. And then if you discover something there, people can see exactly how you got to where you are. There's lots of great live coders on Twitch. And you can be one of them. Another place, if you want to blog, is Blogger. It's a free service. It's pretty customizable and it's easily integrated with a bunch of other things. There's also a lot of early coding projects I've seen for people who are just learning to code, junior developers and such, where you build your own blog and you host it yourself and you make it exactly what you want it to be. So not only do you get experience with coding and creating a website, but you also get to use it afterward and have it be present there. But also just Twitter. Follow the people that you want to interact with people on Twitter, be a part of the conversation, retweet with comment, talk to people and just meet people on there. Because if you discover something, I've seen people who start Twitter and share literally everything they're learning as they're learning a new language. And they end up meeting thousands of people just through sharing their experiences. So there's lots of places that are already available. Twitch, Twitter, Blogger, or making your own blog. All great ways to get out there and do it. And honestly, one of the best places to interact with are open source folks and see where they're writing and what they're doing and where they hang out. That's what I think. That's what I say. I said I would only do that once a show, and I know I've already done it 3 times this show, but it gets a really good reaction every time. So until it's old, get ready.
Yeah, and Mark, how or where did you get started with we'll say sharing information, whether it's blogging, tweeting, videoing, podcasting?
Podcasting. Yeah. So for me, I remember there was a I was following like the people at the time. I think it was like Scott Hanselman. He's still the people today, I know. And so I just thought, get started. And I think there was a course by Rob Connery. I know it wasn't free on Pluralsight. I'll have to dig up the link. Maybe I'll find it during some next talking. And so there they just said, well, like if you do a blog, you might want to consider like who owns your content, because if you're blogging for yourself, like do you want to like give it away to some platform? And so that's like one consideration. And I think the other one is just like getting started, so taking out a lot of the hurdles that you can get into. And so my first blog was on WordPress. I think it's still somewhere out there. And then I thought, okay, I have to host it on my own. So then I took a mini blog from Mads Torgensen. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Butching up the name there, but yeah, one of the Matses from Microsoft. And then I hosted that on Azure and stuff like that, and that was like the classical one with the database and everything. And these days I have mine on GitHub Pages, and it's free, but it takes a bit more work. It's a Jekyll engine beneath, but you write Markdown files, you push it up to the server, it gets compiled into static files, and then you host it. I think it's really cool, but before that, like the mini blog, even though I had to host the entire thing on my own, it was like a microwave meal. You just unwrap it, you put it into the thing, you start it up, it runs, it carefree. And with these Markdown files, I mean, I get the benefit of using whatever editor I want, and I can do all that stuff. But I noticed I once put a character somewhere into one of the headers of the Markdown file, and Jekyll did not like that. It's just I didn't get an error, but my error says feed just was no longer there and stuff like that. So if you're a developer, I recommend checking it out. If you are just in there for sharing the content, WordPress might be great for you, or one of the ones that PJ just mentioned. How about you, Brandon? What's your recommendation?
I think for, let's see, if you're just getting started, the lowest overhead, smallest friction possible is going to be the best route. Because I've met so many people that they say, like, I'm going to start a blog. Step 1, got to create a website. and then all of a sudden you feel this weight of the world on your shoulders that, oh gosh, this is going to be a lot of work. I had set aside an hour to do it today, but I'm not going to be able to build a website in an hour. Let me do it next weekend. And then next week turns into next month, turns into next year. And we still haven't gotten started yet with that
The website's
beautiful
not up
golden blog post, right? Because the website doesn't exist. And so, there's, blogging platforms that, like we've already mentioned. Dev.to is another good option.
That's
where
a good one. I forgot that's a great option.
Yeah, you can just write, and search engines will pick it up if you just include a couple keywords, or if you're blogging because your app kept crashing, include that stack trace in there, because somebody else is going to have that same error message, and they're just going to drop it into Google. And actually, this is me. I'm talking about myself.
I've never done that. It's really important when you do that. When you do that, remove the file names. Like your own names, because you'll get better hits.
Right.
Pro.
Yeah, and so
that's why Brandon calls me a senior developer.
That's right. All senior means is we've had experience Googling it, and we've hit that problem before, so we maybe know how to fix it. But don't feel like you have to do too much. Getting those words down, we'll say theoretically on paper, just on a blog post is enough, because you can always move that content around. It's not like once you build this, you have to keep them on your website forever. Or if you use a platform like Dev.to or Medium or GitHub Pages that has to stay there forever, you can always build your website later. So I would recommend the easiest route first, just to get started, get those ideas down. And then, if you want to learn how to build a website, building your own blog or building your own website for your blog, great place to start.
Yeah.
Now, we've only got a couple minutes left. Mark, the time's flown by. So again, thank you so much for coming on. But I would be remiss if we didn't mention your work in podcasting. Tell us about the podcast you're working on now, Null Pointers.
Yeah, so Null Pointers is at nullpoints.io. You can also find us on Twitter at nullpoints.io. And that's a show that I started out with two of my very good Dutch friends, Gerald and Steven. And Gerald has now focused on his YouTube career. And I think the Xamarin Forms and the Xamarin Community Toolkit is also, and the Marin Community Toolkit has now become more of his focus. So now it's just me and Steven, and so we have just decided to mix things up a bit and actually invite guests onto the show, because we just literally ran out of stuff to talk, or it was us we couldn't listen anymore to our own voices while editing it the entire time.
We need to break it up.
Yeah, we need to break it up. So we talk about tech opinions and just general stuff that crosses the path of a software developer during his life. Yeah, it was one of the podcasts that started during the pandemic. Maybe you were just lonely at home, but I really enjoy doing it, and I'm looking forward to doing it for some time, because I think it's like really interesting, the people that you get to meet. I'm sure I don't have to tell this to you two guys, but it's always enlightening, and it's also like giving you a different perspective on something that you may have already knew, or something that you don't even know anything about. And that's something that I really like doing podcasts. So that was like, I did a blog. I don't do any video. I don't know. It's just probably being too lazy. Maybe one day I'll
it's not laziness. We are way complicating things over here on this podcast, adding the video element. But I think it's because this started as a Microsoft show, and then it kind of turned into a podcast, really. But you don't have to do video. Don't talk yourself down like that, Mark. You're doing great. You're doing amazing stuff.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Aw. This show is sponsored by Compliments.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's fantastic. So, like you said, it's nullpointers.io is the website, and the Twitter handle is nullpointers.io, one word. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, DMs are open, we always like to say.
Yeah, so definitely subscribe to the podcast. I know I'm a little biased because I've actually been a guest on the podcast, but I had a great time. Recommend folks joining, and also to new developers out there. We've been talking a lot about writing blogs. PJ also mentioned streaming on Twitch, but podcasting is also incredibly valuable. There's so much knowledge out there. I know selfishly, I learn a lot just by hosting this, bringing on incredible people like yourself, Mark, that can share your experiences. Yes, we want to encourage more people to get into tech, and that's why we do this podcast. But I also have grown a lot myself and encourage folks to do it as well. There's a lot of free services. Like right now, we're using a tool called Restream. Mark, remind me, what's the tool that Null Pointers uses for recording episodes?
Yeah, so we use Zencaster, which is also
Zencaster, yes.
Yeah, which is you get the free tier. So I think if you go like really professional, like you got a podcasting studio that you do a ton of shows, then you will have to opt into the pay grade. But I mean, for us, we used to do one show per week. Now we do two per month. So it's okay. You also get a video stream. The beginning was like no video stream, and that was a bit dull.
Yeah, I love it. So you don't need a recording studio to start a podcast. The best advice I heard was, if you just have, those free Apple earbuds that come with every iPhone, or at least they used to, those are good enough. Plug those in. As long as you have headphones, microphones, something as simple as that, with a tool like Zencaster, which is free to use, you can get started as well. Mark, I appreciate you coming on the show so much. I feel like we've been cut short on time. I don't know how we just got through an hour. Feels like a couple minutes. But some closing remarks. Where can people find you on the internet? Folks want to follow Mark. Where do they go?
Well, yeah, you can find me at Allibone on Twitter. I got this handle. I try to get it everywhere, so you can also find me on LinkedIn and on GitHub, and yeah, that's just where I am. I'm working at a company called Ray Technology, and the tech industry is at a craze right now. So if you're in Switzerland and you're looking for an interesting job in industrial IT, check us out, raytechnology.com. Yeah, is that how you do ads? I don't know. I mean, PJ, he did it so professional through the break. I just thought, man, this
really
is so
just
cool.
about having the commercial voice. You can say anything you want in a commercial voice and sounds good. Oh my gosh, I've spilled soup everywhere. And then it's about like a cleaning product,
Okay, yeah, I'll buy that one.
That's right. I'm spilling soup all the time.
Well, Mark, thank you so much again for joining us this week. And thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to keep up to date with our latest episodes. We're on YouTube. You can find us on 8bits on YouTube, on all the major podcasting platforms. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you next time.